still watching TVC Breakfast. Power supply has indeed improved. The question really is not just the improvement, which of course is important really, but is it sustainable? And in this improvement, is it evenly spread across the country? I was talking with a producer the other day and who were talking about, yes, it's improved, but he said to me, if you get into the rural areas, am I sure they have light over there? 10,000 megawatts is just about Nigeria's power generating capacity. This is rather low for a country of 170 million people. But not all that power is distributed to our homes, offices and industries. That's because our transmission lines had the capacity to move just about half of that from the point where power is generated to the various distribution points. Joining me this morning to discuss Nigeria's power challenges and likely solutions is the Director General of the Foundation for Transparency and Good Governance in Africa, and the person of ASUBEX. Glad to have you join us this morning on the program.
Good morning.
You had people talking there, and it's quite interesting to know that before now, it's been horrible. I mean, you spend so much on generating light. Somebody said, I do my roads, I give myself light, I'm almost doing everything. But suddenly, the new government comes into power, and there was a switch. What was responsible?
I think it's, basically it was a leadership problem. Former President Goodluck Jonathan was a leader, was a president who didn't want to hurt people. He wanted to be a very nice man. You don't have to be a nice man to be a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So as a leader, when you give responsibilities, demand accountability. And so if you don't demand accountability, of course, people will do whatever they like. You appoint the MD of MPA, the man will do what he likes. You appoint the CG of Customs, he will do what he likes. And so this was the problem. And so the word was impunity, impunity. It was not Jonathan himself that was Mr. Impunity, but because he gave people appointments, he didn't ask for, he didn't extract accountability from them. And so that is why. So now what we have seen, President Buhari has virtually done anything on power. But what we have now is the fear of Buhari, and that is leadership. The fear of Buhari is the beginning of wisdom now, because everybody wants to make sure that the president does not come after him. Yeah. So this is what we have now. And I spoke with an official because to do with power, it has to be, is a relationship between the NNPC that supplies the gas.
Good.
And of course, power holding company is the one still coordinating, even though
the reform has knocked it out. Yeah.
You know, so we had the major challenge. Now we ask. I've also attended one or two fora organized by the former Minister of Power, and the man kept saying that he just cannot imagine how people. You can say yes, you can vandalize a crude oil pipelines because you can extract the product, but when people go to very remote parts of the country and go to the extent of vandalizing gas pipes, of course, you know, once the gas escapes, there's nothing you can do with it. You can't hold it. And so now we started to wonder, what was the problem? And as soon as President Buhari came in, he did not spend an extra kobo to monitor those pipelines. Everything started to fall in place. And so now the question I ask myself, even as a Nigerian, is who were those behind us? What was their motive?
So what answer did you get?
I still haven't found an answer. I haven't gotten an answer as I speak.
No, but how come the vandalism? We'll come back to the NNPC gas and the NERC and Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission relationship between them. But how did it? Because it has gone down. The vandalism, we used to hear it almost on a daily basis.
It's not just gone down. It's zero.
Good.
It's zero. Not a question of just going down. It's zero.
So, what happened? Oh, you said you haven't found an answer yet. That's what you said.
Haven't. Why people? You know, in those days, from those of us in the Niger Delta, when the government comes in and say, why have you not done road for us? Why have you not done pipe water for us? Oh, the project is in the pipeline. That used to be the answer. You know, so, but the question I'm asking is that why are people going into those pipelines? To do what? To achieve what?
I had Neo Akinsuju here yesterday who were discussing on the breakfast. You know, he said the president hasn't done nothing. You know, that's the feeling of so many people. But he was telling me that not really. That he has had to call the stakeholders from there and arrange meetings. And just like he said to concerning the single account, get monies into the single account. Otherwise, you're good. Recently, he just talked about punishments if you don't obey it. So I think that has gone a long way too.
Yeah. Let me make a correction here. I think it will not be fair for me to say it has not done anything. Yes, you see, perhaps what I was trying to say is in terms of committing money.
Yeah, good. Yes, I suspected that
because
too.
As soon as he came in, what we saw the president doing was Permanent Secretary, Minister of Power, come and tell us what has been happening. Good. Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, come on. So he's been meeting all the permanent secretaries to get a brief. So I think I won't be fair to Mr. President to say that.
No, I understand. Yes. That was why I had to bring that back, because I remember, I think just like you pointed out, you were talking, even when people talk in terms of funds, you know, what has he really, but like you said, it's a matter of leadership, really.
Sure.
And that will make me say the buck stops at the table. If you're giving directives and are not carrying it out, I would want to put the blame on you too, even if you're not the one doing it directly, because you're indirectly doing it because you're not asking people questions, you know, which is quite important. I just read this and we'll just talk about it. As of June 2015, it's quite interesting. The country has increased power generation from 3,000 plus. Okay, it recorded 2 weeks ago. That's from that June, 3,801. Sent out energy of 3,700. Now the country's power generation, which was below 2,000 between January and May this year, is already recording peak generation of about 4,000 plus.
Yes, I spoke with on my way to the studio this morning, I spoke with the Permanent Secretary, Federal Minister of Power, Ambassador Igali, and he said it's now alternates, it's an average of 4.5. And at the points, it can even go up to 4.8. And that it depends on of course, the gas supply that is coming. Of course, we have a challenge there. The challenge there is that even the gas that is being generated cannot be accommodated immediately. So we have some gas. Yes.
No, cannot be accommodated.
Yes, you see, the power generating companies cannot take all the gas that is coming, that is available. That is also a challenge. I also spoke with Oyi Alegbe. Of course, Oyi Alegbe is the Group General Manager, Public Affairs in NNPC. He said, look, what we have now can take this country to about 6 to 7 megawatts. Okay. But you see,
by 6 you mean 6,000?
Yes, 6,000. And then so we also have a little challenge in this process of distributing the gas. And then the capacity of these power companies to be able to utilize. So what they do is to say, no, if we take all this that you are bringing to us, we may not be able to utilize it. So they also have some little challenges, which of course is not known to most Nigerians.
And that's what we're talking about this morning, because we're looking about not just because it's interesting that you're talking about the fact that, you know, sometimes you talk about the fact that I don't have enough.
Yes.
Now you're talking about the fact that there seems to be enough.
There's enough. NNPC produces enough.
But I can't take the enough.
Yes.
And somebody's rejecting the enough.
Yes.
How are we going to get around that?
It has to do with, you know, technology, and it needs to do with these companies that have taken over NEPA for them to sit up. And of course, I think that we have a power ministry that is working behind the clock in liaison with this, of course, distribution and the supply companies that came out of the unbundling of PACN. I'm sure that with the approach of the current president, because of course power is one of his priority areas, and I think that give and take in the next 1 year, we should go into West End. I'm telling you.
The way you're talking.
Yes, the way I am so confident. Really confident. Yes, because the major challenge we had was this vandalism. the major challenge we had.
I would still want to find out what caused it to stop, because we're talking about sustaining this, because it's not enough to say, okay, it stopped, but supposing it crops up again, what do you do really to, I mean, we really have to think about making sure that it, just like we have light now, making sure it's sustained over the years, you know.
We have a president who has taken this sector as one of his priorities. And so every minute, I can tell you that on a daily basis, he's in touch with the NNPC and with the Minister of Power to make sure that there's no fall.
That's interesting.
Forward ever. And so, you see, these are key critical areas in your administration. And any responsible president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will not joke with such a sector. Yes, during the Obasanjo years, we learned several billions, in fact, up to the figures being branded.
We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that. Yes. Even the years before Obasanjo, you know, we're going to talk about that. Yes. Former President Jonathan in 2010, during the inauguration of the roadmap in Lagos, where this thing was unbundled and all that, said electricity is the catalyst for growth. I mean, this is very remarkable.
Yes.
Electricity is the catalyst for the growth of our economy, adding that a successful stabilization of power would ultimately improve the lives of millions of Nigerians. Just give me one moment. Let me get this. Continuing from where I read, that was quite interesting to me, so I had to get all that. Okay, it says, no, not here. Just give me a minute. I will get that. All right. He says, now, what he says, you can't fault it. I mean, that's my own. But the question is, isn't it ludicrous, really, that in spite of this decision by past governments, lip service has been paid to this section or sector of the economy? That's what I'm wondering, because we will get to the place to talk about past governments and what so much they didn't do. Even the Senate has set up a committee, the NERC has set up a committee to look into from 1999. We'll get to that, but from what he said, how come that? Because it's not just a question of the past president, Jonathan. 6 years he ruled.
Sure.
From 1999.
Exactly.
If, like he said, this is a major indices for growth, how come past governments didn't just bother?
You see, these are the challenges of leadership. If, for instance, you are the managing director or GM of TVC, of course, on your first day in office, even before assumption of duties, you would have drawn out your priorities.
Yes.
So every leader, we must be able to draw out our areas of priorities. And I see no reason why any government in this country will toy with a critical sector as a par. So under Obasanjo, we had over $16 billion thrown away. And then I'm a maritime journalist.
Good.
And that period, things were being imported, things that have accessories, transformers, this and that were being imported into the country and abandoned at the ports for years, 2-3 years, because like I told you, I'm a maritime journalist, and so you now begin to wonder, for God's sake, why would a government import materials that has to do with power and then leave them fallow at the ports for years? It was not until President Jonathan came into power that some of these items were cleared. In fact, at the point, trust the Nigerian customs, some of these consignments were auctioned. Because, I mean, the law is very clear, whether it's a federal government cargo or not, 90 days, if you don't take delivery of the goods will be condemned by a competent court of law and then auctioned to members of the public.
Really?
So some government was able to retrieve some in some cases, because when the president came in, Jonathan came in. But most of those, so that is the typical Nigerian
system of doing
things. Of doing things
at the leadership level.
Yes.
Now, this was said by a neighbor, and I couldn't help ruminate over this because I couldn't imagine it. That 16 years before you became president, the entire power sector in the country under both NEPA and PHCN did not hire a single engineer for 16 years. Now, the level of dilapidation of the power sector that you inherited, it was of course talking about former president, was so huge that it was not only with regards to material components that we're talking about now, but also with regards to human resources that we just said now. Sure. Was also with regards to funding that was allowed to go so slow that the power sector had become an orphan. Now, I mean, I'm wondering, why for 16 years, not one single engineer was hired? Because eventually they had to hire because of course, the things... we must,
and every year,
give kudos to Jonathan.
And every year, people were retiring. People who had made the mandatory 35 or 6 years or whichever came first were pulling out of service, and we were not recruiting. Young graduates, engineers were roaming the streets, and there were vacancies. Those vacancies were not being declared. Even in the NNPC, for instance, I'm aware that before Desane left office, and NNPC conducted some interviews last year. And just what was left was for the petroleum minister to sign, because that was, I was told, that was the practice for us to. So those letters were held up in a table until they were not signed until she left office. So, you know, this thing called governments, and at times you now begin to wonder, what kind of masquerade is it that, you know, when you say, oh, government, because at times you look at the way some people run when they say government, and then you look at the public corporations, the public, private enterprises, and you begin to wonder, are they not the same Nigerians? Because these same civil servants that we have in the either the MDAs, when they go private,
they do well.
They do well. They do well. So we need to do something about our bureaucracy. We need to do something about bureaucracy. And
that's why leadership
comes.
And
then you see the directive Mr. President said. He said, look, if my file comes to your table and I have a query, there's no reason why that query cannot be answered within 24 hours.
Of course.
Yes. If the man who is to treat that file is not on seat, of course, there must be somebody, because nobody is indispensable. So these are the kind of things that we have from time to time that slows down the engine room of governance.
And of course, the question of power.
Yeah.
I was, again, while I was researching on this, I was reading an article, and this is not my piece, I must say. This was what somebody who was making a comment contributed, and it was quite interesting to me. Let's share it together. Why can't, talking about Jonathan, the former president, or even Buhari, the current president, not just come up with one strong agenda? For example, concentrate efforts on power, raise the capacity to at least 20,000 megawatts, sustain it, and privatize the system to run efficiently, with a clause that the succeeding companies must increase capacity annually by at least 2,000 megawatts for the next 12 years or have their license revoked. I don't know whether you got all of it.
Sure.
But I will get back to you.
Sure.
Maybe I'll look at it more so we can look at, because that sounded to me a very wonderful idea.
It's achievable.
It was a
yes, it's practical.
Good. All right. I'll take a break. I've been discussing with Asubex. He's been here with me. We were talking on not just the fact that now we seem to have light, which is wonderful, which is cost saving, and which of course is going to spiral the spiral effect. So much more will be employed, production will go up a notch, companies can make more profits, sales will go up, all that. We're looking at all that. How can we sustain it? What are the bottlenecks? What do we take out? What do we leave? So it can, instead of going down, we can just keep on going up and going up. Like South Africa today, is able to generate 40,000 and above, and Nigeria has been struggling to get above 5,000. 170 million people, that's really a shame. We're talking power supply in Nigeria, And not a few Nigerians said they've been having relatively steady electricity supply in the past few weeks. But Nigeria needs to do more to become an industrial nation. You would agree with that. 10,000 megawatts is just about Nigeria's power generating capacity. Now, this is way less than the 45,000 megawatts South Africa produces. Yeah. I mean, South Africa has less than a third of Nigeria's population. You'd probably be saying that's a shame. But not all that 10,000 megawatts is distributed. I mean, that's another challenge to our homes, offices, and industries. That's because our transmission lines have capacity to move just about half of that from the point where power is generated to the various distribution points. I have joining me here, well, joining us because I have had ASUBEX all along. Joining us here in the studio is the Publicity Secretary of the Democratic Socialist Movement, pardon me, and the convener of the No Lie, No Payment campaign, Dagga Tolar. Glad to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
Dagga has been venting behind the scene. Now, I want him to rewind so we can go on from where we left it off behind the scene. So can you rewind? Like I asked you, how is light been in your area?
Well, I must say there has been massive improvement in the supply of electricity to our various homes. We have been active in Ajegule and in Agor Kota area, and you can take Agor, for example. There has been massive improvement in situations where you had just an hour, load shedding and all of, a period of disbursing darkness, which is what we want to refer to it, as, cease to a situation where Nigerians, can't even believe that there's electricity.
Like a miracle.
Yeah. But we Nigerians must not be hoodwinked, because for a long time there has been half sense of anything in relation to governance. When this experiment started in 1999, a new coinage became popular, dividend of democracy. But in relation to the steady supply we are currently having, I think the first point to state is that electricity supply is a right of Nigerians.
It is.
So we need not begin to,
like when they get light, I get pissed when they get light and somebody's shouting, oh, give me a break.
Exactly. So, and we must not allow this current steady supply to prevent us from raising all of the concrete issues. And I'm happy in the intro you did point out that industrialization is key. If we must resolve the question of the massive unemployment situation, the statistics from the Bureau of Statistics last week was extremely funny. Gave a 29-something million Nigerians who were not captured, but gave a figure of 14 million as unemployed. But the truth is that these two figures add up together as official statistics of over 40 million Nigerians practically doing nothing in this country.
That's a huge number.
So the question of industrialization is key. And as you have just mentioned, even at 10,000 Nigerians not started, as we speak, not every household in Nigeria has access to electricity in this country. There are numerous working class compounds, villages in the rural areas, even in urban cities that do not have access to electricity. Then you now have this announcement last week that the country requires 45 billion naira for electricity for 8,000 megawatts mark to be arrived at in the next 3 years. And this, for us, is extremely funny. The first question you must ask is that what have the discos and the gencos brought into the takeover of electricity? Since November 2013 that they took over. The Senate, some 2 weeks ago, made a pronouncement, that the fixed charge should go for now. And you had government spokesperson, NEC, as headed by Ahmadi, a regulatory body for electricity, going straight in defense of the discourse. So you begin to ask if a government institution, if Nigerians don't matter. But let's play with statistics. The past 22 months, and these 22 months, the discourse have only just scored 2 over 22. July and August, over all of us. For good 20 months, their #1 business was disbursing darkness to Nigerians. And through all of this period, 2 things were concrete. Fixed charge of 750, side by side with crazy bills, added with disconnection fees. No, but just take the fixed charge of 750. As we speak, roughly a rough estimate, there are over 25 million households that pay electricity bills in this country. Times that with 750 naira, and this 45 billion naira that they are now telling us that electricity needs to be provided to 8,000 naira has been provided by Nigerians.
Hold your thoughts there. That was where you came in when we were talking. You talked about, you were saying something. You followed him up from here.
Yes.
He gave the concrete example of his own compound,
good.
You know, and the flats.
I have an office complex in Festac, and we have over 50 flats in that plaza, and we pay that 750 every month, whether we have light or not.
Don't.
That is one aspect. The other aspect is that the entire plaza has 1 meter. And when the bill comes, you know what happens? They will just look at you. How many bulbs do you have? Pay 2,000, pay 3,000. You can imagine. So when you add up all that, like what he's saying, it's crazy.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
All right, I'll ask you to hold your thoughts there. I have a caller all the way from BENUE State, OGABA. Good to have you join us. Don't forget, before you start talking, to help me and turn down the volume on your TV set so there will be no interference. OGABA, go ahead.
Okay, I can. Good morning and regards to your studio. I mean, your guest in the studio. There is an issue you raised and you say you don't have an answer. It means that you don't know that there are some people in this country, a group of people who call themselves the owners of Nigeria. And these people, what they do is they follow the budgetary allocation because there is so much money available. They follow this money and they decide how this money should be spent because they know that nobody will ask them questions. If the pipelines are vandalized, somebody has to be giving contract to do so, one thing or the other. Is the same people. So there's a lot of conspiracy because they know that nobody will ask them questions. But now we have a leader. They know that if anything goes wrong, the person will ask questions, and if he finds out that anybody is involved, he will come after him. That is why things have changed, and we pray that the change we have now will be sustained.
Amen.
God bless you, and God bless Nigeria.
That's a good prayer, and I shouted amen to that prayer. I love that prayer. He's made a point that I knew what he was talking about.
Yes,
we talked about.
Okay,
when you said, for the life of me, I cannot tell how it has really stopped.
Yes.
But I think he's making a point. The point of there probably are infiltrators, insiders working against the government.
Sure.
That's quite
because funny. Fixing pipelines is a very, very lucrative business.
Very, very lucrative. You know, I was, before we'll get back to, we'll continue a lot, but we don't have all the time in the world, I raised an issue with him. Why can't whether Jonathan Buhari or the one after him, not just come up with one strong agenda, for example, concentrate efforts on power, raise the capacity to at least 20,000 megawatts, sustain it, and privatize the system to run efficiently with a clause that the succeeding companies must increase capacity annually by at least 2,000 megawatts for the next 12 years or have their license revoked. All right, that sounds a fantastic idea to me, because I told him it wasn't my idea. Cannot fault it, or is it that our leaders are bereft of ideas, or they can't think, or at least employments? I'll have you hold on. I have a caller. Mohammed calling from, Niger State. All right, Mohammed, go ahead.
Yeah, hello?
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello?
Go on.
Hello?
I can hear you. Go on, Mohammed. All right, we're having an issue with Mohammed. Oh, right, please.
I think you've raised a very vital, important point, and I'm extremely happy that you have identified that the state needs to play a key role. But where I don't agree is when the state brings all of the resources of society, into investing into electricity. And this is fundamental. If Buhari will be seen as being taken serious ultimately, there is a need to reverse the privatization that has taken place.
Why?
Because you can't have a situation, just like you have clearly pointed out, that the state will offer all of its resources, the collective wealth of Nigerians, for electricity to be provided. And once that is done, we tell ourselves that Nigerians cannot manage it. What has been missing in public operation, which Nigerians are not taking note of, is the question of a democratic management. Corruption is not synonymous to public organizations. This country provided bailout for private banks. None of those private banks were public-run institutions. So when I hear this idea of corruption synonymous to public operations, Nigerians seems to be missing it. And this is exactly what has happened. Under the Obasanjo regime, $16 billion was invested on electricity. I think it was even 20. Yeah. Exactly. When PHCN was to be unbundled, they gave it out for $2.6 billion, a giveaway prize. Then ask yourself, what happened to all of those wealth? So this country is rich enough to invest in electricity, to even make domestic usage of electricity free for Nigerians, if democratically managed. For those of us who have taken time out to understudy the way the Nigerian economy runs, we keep pointing out that the basic fundamental flaw in relation to public operation is the absence of a democratic management. And with electricity, it is key. One of the callers pointed out that, well, we need to appreciate Buhari constantly. But we must not forget that it is the mass of the working people themselves who must be the watchdog, who must rise up in their various communities. Yeah,
like Moses was saying earlier on trending, accountability.
Exactly.
Asking questions of your leaders.
Exactly. And if you ask me, the kind of campaigns that have occurred in communities like Ago Okota, Ajegule, Agege, in various neighborhoods, that has resulted into mass movement in all of this area, March, April, May, June, has contributed, has created an active layers of individuals. In Ago Okota, for example, where Ikeja Disco is, the process of providing prepaid meters has commenced.
I haven't got mine. My landlord told me they've paid for quite a while, and we haven't got ours.
They're even giving out for free. And for us in Akota, it's not unconnected to the fact that the residents in the community stood up and organized.
All right, Dagga Tolar.
The last bill, okay. I end up with this. Take the bills for just last month. And this is another key crucial factor. To generate electricity 24 hours for Nigerians, for domestic usage. And you bring a bill of 15,000 naira. When the bill of July was brought in Ago, a mass movement again commenced. We rejected the payment of 15,000 in a country where minimum wage is 18,000 naira. And the people took a resolution that they are not going to pay more than 3,500 naira.
What happened?
And they stuck to that. And that is what we have paid for the month of July in our Go area.
I think people listening should take a cue from this.
Exactly. Because in the same bill, the NEC has made a pronouncement that bulk billing has been outlawed. But the truth is that the discourse continue to engage in bulk billing.
All right, Dagga Tolar, he wants to... sorry, I was coming to you, Asubex, but okay. I have a caller. Adams from NASARAWA State, go on. Hello, Adams.
Hello, good morning.
Go on.
Morning.
Good morning to you, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I actually want to comment on the current issue.
Okay.
Well, where I actually live, I live in the interiors in Nasarawa State. And we actually pay this bill of, now 700 naira.
Fixed charge.
I mean, everybody actually even pay this 700 naira. And if we can pay 700 naira in the interior, I wonder how much people actually pay in the main city. This, since they actually privatize,
Sorry about that. PHCN is actually unbundled and privatized it. Okay, I'm going to still come back to the 750 because I'm sure somebody who is listening is saying, Indy, you didn't follow that up. We don't have all the time. But I'm going to come back to the question of we have, like you said, generated that. So the question will be, where is it? Where is it going to? Why are we still paying it? Even when I
what
think I
purpose
remember,
is this used?
yes, what purpose? And when I remember that at a point, NERC was saying we shouldn't even pay because I can't be paying for what you have not given me first. I think it should be the other way. You give me light, then I can pay these charges. You were about to say something when he was talking, but let's discuss, or still on that, you know, that idea, you know, why can't we just simply get, I wish that Garba Shehu or Additional is listening, or even the president. That idea, I think, is a fantastic idea for me.
Yes, sir, because if you tie it to, for instance, like GSM, I don't think any GSM operator, will tell you to pay a fixed charge for your mobile phone. Yes. And so why will you ask me to pay that fixed charge? If you're talking about maybe some big, huge commercial enterprises,
which
will
fall
yes,
back to the consumer.
Yes,
ultimately.
fine. But the most questionable is situations where, for instance, if, for instance, I travel out of my house or to some other place on vacation, whatever, for 3-4 months, the light is not in use, and I come back to meet a monthly 750. I mean, it's
right.
ridiculous.
Let me add to this,
yes,
because it's important, because Amadi was quoted during the week that it's global practice and that Nigerians must and continue to pay that. And like we have pointed out, the enormous figure of amount that this amount to, yes, it's enough to help us to provide the fund with which electricity can be provided. So if you have a situation where Nigerians are paying this money for a certain period of time with the belief that it will aid the process of providing electricity, Nigerians will not mind. But this money is going into private pockets.
Right, hold it on there. I don't know whether it's correct to say that, but I mean that's your own thinking. We'll get back to that. I have AHIBU, I hope I'm correct, calling in from I think BENUE State. Am I right? GOMBE State. Go on. Good morning. Oh, he's out. Okay. We can't finish. This is such a wonderful topic, but the time is, let me not say very short, is big. Everything has its time. I don't like talking the other way. We can't finish talking about this without looking at sustaining this. I mean, I remember one of my pastors, he would say, there are problems, and there will always be problems. There will always be challenges. Problems are different from challenges. Problems get solved. Challenges, you meet them, but we will have challenges. We will have problems. But the question is, how do we overcome them? How do we sustain this that seems to have started? We can't say it's Uhuru yet, and we can't let Buhari or the leadership rest on their oars. For example, you have lack of financing capacity on the part of the new investors, inadequacy of supply, non-metering of customers, outrageous estimated billing, what we call crazy bills,
yes,
like you just mentioned, non-declaration of transitional electricity market, as well as generation, transmission, and distribution constraints, which seems to be where the bulk of the problem lies. Also, how do we... I'll get back to you. AHIBU from Gombe State, good morning.
Hello?
Yeah, go on. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Hello?
I can hear you. I hope that you can hear me. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, that will get back. So, what do we begin to tell the current government in terms of these challenges, in terms of sustaining, moving on from where we are, getting higher, increasing it? Like South Africa, like we read there, 40,000. We are...
45.
That's why I can't understand that.
I think the distribution companies, they have to know that, we are no longer NEPA or PSC CN, because they're still carrying on as if they're in the past. Still doing the same old things that they used to say.
Like?
Outrageous bills.
Okay.
Bills that cannot be substantiated.
You can't.
Yes, you just don't wake up one morning and tell somebody, yes, I look at your house, this you should be paying 20,000 a month.
It don't make no sense.
It makes no sense. I have my phone, I make calls, And as soon as the call ends,
I know.
I am told the number of minutes I spend.
Good.
And I get a charge. And so the distributing companies, they must digitalize. Because I have a feeling that they are still operating on analog. That is why we are having these problems. They must digitalize.
Yes.
Because you just don't wake up and begin to branding bills.
It doesn't make sense.
Yes, and then the issue of prepaid meters is also very key here.
It's very key.
I think that the government should be able to give these companies a deadline to say between now and so, because Nigerians don't wake up if you don't give deadlines.
Been given.
Yeah. Oh, it's been given?
Yeah.
Well, okay, maybe you can.
Well, let me say that this situation is not necessarily funny. I have a different view completely, entirely. And I think this process can only be sustained if the collective resources of this country, I continue to say, when Abacha died in this country, oil was selling for $9 per barrel. You know, through the late 80s, through into the 90s, $9 per barrel. And when the Obasanjo regime came into power, probes and Abacha was accused of having stolen billions at that figure.
At that $9.
At that $9. So when I hear this cry that oil price has dropped, it's $37 per barrel now, it is still huge wealth in the hands of the ruling elite in Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Tolar,
if the country democratically manages.
You know, this democratically managed. I'll also take you up on that. I hope I have all the time, because you've been saying that phrase, but I'd like to know what it means, what you mean by that. All right, let me get the caller again.
Hello?
ABUBAKAR, Gombe State.
Hello,
Good morning to you.
Calling from Gombe. Good morning to you all.
Good morning to you.
I'm really appreciating and enjoying this your conversation, please. But I want to add on something what this man saying. Issue of this, they are meter readers. You can imagine how meter readers go into corruption nowadays. They just have 1 to 10 houses. They don't have even bills. After end of the month, they will be going to that houses, collecting their money without giving them bills. And they can come to somebody's house and say that you have more than 3 ACs, 4 televisions, so that you can pay more than 5,000 a month. It's injustice. So that I want you to advise them on how they are managing this, their so-called power generation and of a thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ABUBAKAR. Continue.
Yeah, very importantly, the labor relations in all of this we have ignored. And when I say the labor relation, the condition in which all of the workers that have been employed by the DISCO management are working. This is extremely very key, because given the casualization conditions in which a majority of the workers in the DISCOs operate,
Find themselves, yeah.
they return back into the communities, undermining their various companies, you know, to put pressures on the mass of those they want to collect one thing or the other before, to get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So if we think appropriate standard of working conditions are not necessary in all of these issues, we will also be missing it. There's the need for all of those employees by the DISCOs to be given the appropriate necessary standard working conditions.
That's one of the key to sustaining it.
Sure.
And
exactly, it's extremely important. When you take that, I must return back to this question of democratic management.
Because I'm sure Ashley is laughing. I'm sure you that I'm sure you are waiting to know what he was talking about there.
If these countries are appropriately managed, electricity for domestic consumption, can be free for the mass of Nigeria. But the truth, again is that, which I've pointed out, if public corporations must be run and seen to be efficient, there's the need not to see the COE, the MD, as a dean god that cannot be challenged. And the only basis by which such individuals can be checked is to put in place a democratic management that will include the workers, that will include the consumers. And I'll give you a concrete example. Take Ajegunle, for example. If the budget for electricity is 20 million in that neighborhood, Mr. General Manager need not go to church to go and congratulate that, his days of success has arrived. Because if in Ajegule, if on my street there is a need for a transformer, the elected representative in the democratic management of electricity in that neighborhood will go and bid from the 20 million that is available for transformers. Workers will put in their challenges. The management too will put on their management. But you have had the situations where public organizations, have been run, on the basis of tingles where nobody can be challenged. So when the funds are pumped in and these funds are managed, there is nobody to check who and how these funds are being managed. This for us is the necessary antidote
to sustaining what is going on.
Of course, the first step is that the Buhari regime must be seen as renationalizing all of the districts.
Dr. Tolar, maybe that's why when the president got into power, he said, I am not appointing ministers here because I want to establish rules of conduct and governance. So if you're coming on board, you know what you're coming to do, you know where you can't extend, where your authority stops, and then the fact of treasury one single account. Yes. So when money is going out, we know who is taking, we know where it's going to, instead of several areas. Yes. And again, Ahmed online from KANO. Ahmed, let's have you. Good morning to you, Ahmed. Hello, Ahmed.
Good morning to you.
Yeah.
I was born in 1977. From that day, the range of that years, I'm only enjoyed life for just 5 years. So all the time that I spend in my life is just no light. In fact, our house or family, they are paying for the darkness. It's only these days that we are opportune to have a light, in fact, a consistent light, a little improvement. So what I was saying is that we in Nigeria, we are not supposed to pay for the bills because previously we paid for the darkness. That was I was happy. I was very glad for that person, CONVENER, with no light, no payment. That is just the reality. And the Nigerian president should look into Nigerian masses and say that they are no longer pay for the electricity because we have already paid our own previous years for the darkness.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Going back to tell me when you were born and the fact that you have paid, so you shouldn't be paying now. That's quite interesting.
Yes. Exactly. Because, like we pointed out, the discourse took over November 2013, and Nigerians paid with the expectations that it will provide fund for them.
Yes.
And we are just taken for a fool's ride.
Like I was saying.
And interestingly, one of the major slogans we raised in the campaign in Agor was for Ikeja Disco to give us a 2-year moratorium period.
Oh, really?
As compensations for all of the funds we paid the past 20 months.
And it can happen.
Sure, why not?
Why these things don't happen is that nobody really comes to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, the NEC, the Regulatory Electricity Commission, gave a 50 billion proposal to Abuja Disco and made a proclamation that Abuja Disco should pay back 50 million naira to consumers in Abuja. And I posed the question, why is NEC doing this selective compensation for only people in Abuja? The truth is that all of the discos have not fared any better, if anything, even worse off. Or are they telling us that Abuja has this sections of...
I hope Dr. Ahmad is listening because you can't be giving one side.
They have senators, they have House of Reps, and they have the Aso Rock there. So they need to provide some privileges, for those in Abuja.
And that would be wrong because we send them there. They're there at our behest.
Exactly.
Without you and I, they won't be there.
And these bills are even paid by government.
Exactly.
Most of these are public.
That's even true. Because they don't even pay these bills. So they should even be the ones not to get it. I mean,
exactly.
Really, if you want
in a sense. So it's entirely wrong for Ahmadi NEC to approve a return of 50 million to consumers in Abuja and ignore those of us in Ajegule, ignore those of us in Sokoto, ignore those of us in Bauchi who have paid wait these past 20 months with no electricity.
It's like ignoring the SMEs in any nation.
I'm telling you.
The nation dies because they are really the engine room of the economy of any nation in the world, SMEs.
And this is why Nigerians will have to turn to Buhari and demand a full retakeover, a full renationalization. But like I've pointed out, instead of like in the previous era, there's a need for democratic management.
Good.
It's only democratic management that can plug and cover up all of the loopholes
so
of
nobody keeps
corruption.
stealing money. Yes. Asu, 20 million had been sunk into the power sector in the past 16 years. I mean, and like we're saying, and like we're saying, electricity is still very expensive. Now, recently, the Senate committee launched a probe into the problems, even as the National Electricity Regulatory Commission has raised a 14-member, I mean, both of them, a task force to shore up supply. Do you see this in any way solving the problems we're talking about and sustaining? I have a caller. Yeah, good morning. Who's MUKTAR? Good morning to you from Lagos here. Fantastic. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. My name is MUKTAR.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just want to contribute a quick one.
Good.
A friend of mine from ABUBAKAR from GOMBE somewhere trying to say something about the billing thing. What he was trying to say is this. They don't even got a chance to get a bill, but yet the company will come to their houses and check if they have ACs, TV, and by that, they will bill them, even without bringing bill to them. So that is one thing. On the other hand, I want the government to look into this thing and give people chance. Like people who want prepaid meter should be allowed to use prepaid meter. And people who want to have what do we call it, the reading meter of things should be allowed to do such thing also, so that there will be balance. Because some will be looking at the what do we call it, the recharge billing, looking at it like what they don't like, and why some people want this normal bill that we used to have before.
So you're saying it can go side by side.
In such a way, the meter will be there. They will come in and inspect it, change it, check on it, the way you make use of your light, and they will bill you on that. If you are able to spend up to 100,000 in a month, based on your house appliances and what you are using, they should bill you based on that. And people who feel they want to go and buy scratch card for their light should also be allowed to do that. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. Wonderful contribution there. Yeah, we're talking about this committee that's been set up by the Senate, the probe, probe into the problems, and then even the NERC has raised a 14-member task force to shore up supply. You think this is going to help nick the problems and then maybe sustain? We'll go from where we are, because I like the way Dagga Tolar, it's not Uhuru yet, fantastic, and well, maybe why we're feeling like this, people in South Africa won't feel like this. Maybe why we're feeling like this is because over the years we've been denied light. So, you know, when you give a poor man a little, even from what should be his, that he hasn't been having before, he's going to thank you to the high heavens because he doesn't know any better. You know.
So now talking about probe, and that takes me back to a statement credited to Mr. President that his probe will start from the Jonathan regime. I find that unacceptable. You see, because we are talking about between 16 and 20 billion a year squandered by the Obasanjo administration. And so, you see, for us to get things right, we must first check, look at our past and say, what did we do? What did we not do? And so, in any situation like we have now, probes are very, very essential to enable us get it right. For instance, let me digress. Now, we have a very funny situation now in the Nigerian Customs Service. Now, you know why I'm bringing this? You see, because the former Controller General of the Nigerian Customs Service, Diko Ndebulai, voluntarily retired on the 18th of August. And from that day till now, we have had a vacuum. Now, Mr. President now told us he's bringing in Colonel Hamid Adi to head the customs.
Can you just allow me to take this call?
Okay.
Just hold your thoughts
Yes.
in your chest. Chidi from Kaduna, thank you for calling in. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Go on.
I'm happy for your program. I've been enjoying it.
Thank you.
Please, I will have a little contribution in what you are saying. Because this NEPA issue, in Kaduna here, thank God we are having a constant light now, better than the previous time. Hello?
Yeah, go on. Go on.
Yeah. But the problem is that sometimes I want the current ruling this thing now to please look into some of these NEPA stuffs. Because I recently opened a shop for my wife, and I went to the NEPA office to request for this prepaid meter. And I was told that I would pay 20,000 naira, and they will place me in an order maybe for about 2 or 3 months before the bill I will receive the meter. But somehow I got a guy that these people that are fixing this prepaid meter, and they asked me to pay 7,000 naira, and I gave them 7,000, and they came and they stopped the prepaid meter for me. So why is it that even from my outsider, I'm getting something I'm supposed to get from the NEPA office, and meanwhile I went to the main office and they're telling me 20,000 naira, and from my side I'm getting it for 7,000 naira. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I don't know how the government. I know our president is doing very well and he wants to stabilize electricity, but those that are working at that offices, most of them are very corrupt. So please, you should look into some of these offices. If some of them need to be started, they should start and bring in people who work with him. So I will start this problem of I've been starting from 70s all up to now. Thank God that the team is trying to stabilize now, but we need people who can actually work with him, not just putting anybody there that we doing what of rubbish. Thank you very much.
Good point, Chidi, and thank you for raising that issue. Continue from where you stopped. We'll deal with that issue.
Yeah, so the issue I'm talking about here is if you said an agency was riddled with corruption and the person leaves office and the man is working free, and then you are bringing a military administrator to an establishment that the laws of the land says, look, the hierarchy, if the CG retires, you take any of the CG.
Aspects, you know what?
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I am constrained now. I've been told by my director that I have less than 1 minute, and I'm trying to manage it. You people have so much to say. We have so much to talk about, but I'm going to ask you for your last words at this program now.
Okay. My last word here is that Mr. President should make power his priority and make sure that the companies that have taken over after the unbundling of NEPA must be up and doing. Good. And then they should be given targets.
That's it, like we talked about before.
It
has to be brief.
Yeah. The discourse are in business to make profit. Good. So I'm not deceived. The attempt to increase tariff is an indirect means through which these crazy bills will return back to all of us. The litigation process is ongoing. And this is why if there must be constant electricity in this country, delivered to Nigerians at the rate of this discourse will not be able to afford it. So inevitably, the state must come in. Instead of providing bailouts for this discourse company, which the Jonathan regime did, provide bailout to Nigerians by renationalizing electricity and place under democratic management and invest all of the resources of this country to ensure that there's 24 hours electricity and the base for industrialization in Nigeria will commence. That's
Dagga Tolar talking there. No light, no campaign. Convener, right? I'm right there. Yeah. And then, of course, ASUBEX, General Foundation for Transparency and
Good Governance in Africa.
Good Governance in Africa. Wonderful. I've had fun, really. I've enjoyed myself. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for keeping me company here for some number of hours. I wish we could have gone on and on, but I was told by my director, don't mind him, that I have to call it a day here. Thank you for being here on the program. And that has been on TVC Breakfast. Tomorrow will be another day, of course. I'm India Mogo, thanking you for being there and for calling in and for listening in.